and this one particular question is, can a player's ability be enhanced by simply a change of blade or rubber? So basically, you know, someone who plays and they might change their rubber or their blade or something. Do you feel that just that will change and make that player better? And I know probably Simon Morgan's going to go mad over this one, but anyway, but you know, it's but do you think that could happen? You know, do you think, because I have some thoughts on that, you know, and I'd like to hear what you guys think. So literally, you've got a player, he's changed his bat or his rubber, or you've advised him to change his bat or his rubber, and then all of a sudden he's playing much better or much more consistent than that.
Or worse.
Is it all a load of bollocks, or is it right?
There's a bit of both, really. It's my pet hate, actually. I see so many people I coach who'll say, "Oh, I've changed my rubber," and they'll play for 5-10 minutes, and they'll be saying, "Oh, I'm playing brilliant," and then the next day, "Oh, it's rubbish that I'm getting rid of it. I'm going back to this," and they keep changing. And for me, obviously, if you find the correct rubber and the blade that you're comfortable with, it will make a difference, but it's only a minimal difference. Unless you maybe like Rory, where you'll play with pimples, and especially if it's long pimples, then I think you have to find the correct combination. But if you're just an ordinary reverse rubber player, I don't think it makes the difference people think. And I think a good player, and I've got a story actually about this. I was on holiday in Mexico, and where below where we was laying sunbathing, I could hear a table. There was a table tennis table, and I could hear the ball go in. And all of a sudden, this day, it sounded completely different. It sounded like somebody down there can play. So I went and had a look over the balcony, and all I could see was a hand coming out, and the shots that this hand was doing, because when I was looking over, I couldn't quite catch the person, were unbelievable. And it was with a piece of wood with rubber hanging off it, and you know, the type of bat had been left out in the sun. Yeah. And it, honestly, I said, God, who's this person that I can see? That you could see he didn't need to have good bat or a good bat or rubber. And then, believe it or not, a little tornado come through right at that point and wiped all the tables and chairs, and everybody had to do a runner. And I didn't find out who it was till the next day. And the next day I went to play tennis, and he's Big D, Chris Duran, at the tennis court.
Seriously?
Yeah, it's a true story, actually. I remember Chris telling me.
Yeah, it was him. So we ended up playing tennis all holiday, and especially Big D, because there was a Romanian girl there who was obviously more his and quite attractive. So he spent all holiday, nowhere to lie. This is Chris I'm talking about here. He was getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning, doing shuttle runs in the tennis court, 7 to 8. Then he'd do a circuit class. Then he would play tennis for about 3 solid hours in 40, 50 degrees of heat. He was super fit at that time. But the moral of the story is he has a great hand, and he was a brilliant player with just a lump of wood. And I just think if you give a top player any bat that you're not happy with, they'll do a good job with it. And likewise, you could get the best bat in the world, and it's going to make maybe 1 point difference or 2 point difference. It's not going to make.
I think mainly it was probably more of a question of like almost like style of play, like, you know, because obviously, you know, a lot of players have got different styles and they're coached different ways and stuff like that, and maybe certain shots maybe are suited to maybe different bats or rubbers, maybe. I don't know.
Unless you're a combination player, like say sort of Rory, I think it's only minimal. It's only minimal.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's it. It's for those elite players, they maybe can use those slightly different the rubbers they've got, the slightly different technology that rubbers have got. But for the average league player in England, they're probably, in my opinion, using equipment that they shouldn't be using. It's probably too advanced, and I put myself into that as well. Can equipment make you better? Yes, a lot of it is probably psychological effects. I think again, I think you said if it feels right, and that's what it's got to feel right. So for me, does the blade feel right in my hand, the way that the feel of the handle? And once I find something that feels nice in my hand, I'm happy with that, and I'll only change it when it needs change because it's wrecked, and I'll try and find the same blade again. Or, I've been using the same equipment for 5 years maybe. But yeah, it can make a difference. It can make people worse.
Because the reason why I asked it was because obviously, like Rory plays with long pimps and is really effective with it, and
Rory's not bad with normal rubbers as well.
Well, yeah, probably as well. Well, he twiddles as well, so it makes it even harder, doesn't it? So it's but Rory, did you play? Is it something that you started with, or is it something that you changed, or?
No, so I played 13, 14 years with just normal rubbers, both sides, and I got to a decent level, I'd say county level and that. And then I just kind of, you get a bit bored, don't you? You want something a bit different. And I found that I was playing some, higher players and better ranked players, and I'd get to like 9-all in the 5th or something, and I just missed 2 returns of serve. And I thought some other people who were worse than me changed to long pimples, and they had no technique or whatever, and they just suddenly, you'd see them coming up the rankings and even beating me when they, before I would have beaten them easily. So I thought I'll try it out. I had tried it out a couple of times in the past and not done anything with it. But one time I got a bit bored. I took the rubber off my backhand. I just thought, let's stick a sheet of long pimples on it.
See what happens.
I think it was the band 2 in the morning, and I lost both of them juice in the 5th against higher ranked players. And then in the band 3 in the afternoon, I think I got to the semis or something, and I beat two people. This is with pimples, having not practiced with them at all. Just shoved them on there without having played with them before. And I got to the semis and I beat 2 people I'd never beaten before. So I thought, well, if I can do that in one day, then,
what can I do for a little while?
Over the course of that year, I probably wasn't significantly better because I would lose to some people I'd always beaten, and I'd beat some people I'd never beaten before, sorry. But after that year, I noticed that, I was going up the rankings and getting better, and I'd cut out the silly losses, and I was still getting the good wins.
And do you think that was just down to the fact that it was just different? It was just different stuff going on, and just other people were just not quite used to that sort of thing. And
that is a lot of it. Because I would go for what looks like a heavy dig with the pimples. Yeah. And someone goes to push it, and then it goes straight up in the air, and I just cream it.
Smash it.
I've always had a decent smash, so if I get any high ball, that's it, usually, unless they're really
no technique for me, just...
with a kaka at the end of it.
That's a bit more to it than that. Yeah, you've got to have your kaka.
I remember reading a podcast from Tom Lodziak. Do you know Tom Lodziak, Ali?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I read a podcast or a blog or something from him, and I think he said that there was over 262 million different combinations of rubbers and blades and everything.
I've tried them all.
But to answer the question as to whether rubbers can make a difference, I'd agree with what people have said so far. So basically, if you're just changing from one reverse rubber to another, you might get a couple of points, maybe.
Yeah.
It might make the difference in a really close match. And again, a lot of it's psychological and how the bat feels. Some people like a hard rubber. So I personally prefer a bit of softness and a bit of feeling. That it can make a couple of points difference, but it might help you win some close matches. But it's not going to make you into the next level of player. But changing to a long pimple or even a short pimple or medium pimple or anti-spin or whatever could, in theory, make certain players much better, depending on if it suits their style.
Yeah.
I've done it a few times with players with long pimples mainly. I've had a player who just blocked everything, backhand everywhere on the table, and he had no forehand, and he was good, but I just thought this style is absolutely perfect for long pimples, and it was, and he got so much better with long pimples. Another player, I ended up putting him I started him off on short pimples. That helped a bit. Then he went to long pimples on his backhand. That brought him to the next step up. And then I put short on his forehand and long on his backhand, and he went up to another level.
Yeah.
You know, so I think if you're completely changing the surface, it can. I mean, it doesn't always work.
But it's dependent on your style of play, I suppose. You know.
I have put 2 or 3 people onto pimples and then realized that this isn't working, or maybe it worked very short term and then I decided they didn't need them anymore, so they went back to normal rubbers. So sometimes it's just a matter of keeping a player in the game. You know, sometimes, I mean, I had a player who wasn't really that keen. He was playing once a week. He wasn't improving. He didn't listen to any coaching advice. And then I got him onto long pimples, and suddenly he's starting to, because that was suited his style, and suddenly he's starting to beat people. And next thing, he's playing twice a week, 3 times a week. At the end of that I think he started off the season in division.
Do you think that suited his style, though? Do you think that just sort of suited his style, and that's why he started to think, well, actually, I quite like this now because I'm getting the ball back?
Yeah, and because he was more successful, he took it more seriously. And by the end of that first year, he started off in Division 2. He had 90-something%. Then he went to Division 1 halfway through the season, got 90-something%. And then he was in the Premier second half of the season, and he got about like 33% in the Premier. So, you know, he continued playing on. He beat Tom Maynard, actually. It was his best ever win, was Tom Maynard as a junior. But he quit after juniors. But yeah, that's the way it goes sometimes.
But yeah, they're playing with pimples.
So it sounds as though that in certain circumstances, it depending on styles and your sort of the way you think about the game, it could well. It could well.
Actually, going back to the same player, they banned frictionless long pimples in, I think it was 2007. So this player then went to anti-spin and went to normal rubbers, and he was still quite good. But I think it was a bit demotivating once he couldn't play quite to that same level. That's probably why part of the reason.
Yeah, I remember the frictionless stuff. Yeah, I remember all that. But I mean, and like I said, the only reason why I asked that question, because like when I came back, I mean, I literally came back and I had no idea what bat or rubbers or whatever I should be using. So I just thought, well, I'm just going to get the fastest rubber and the fastest blade going and just wallop the crap out of everything that I possibly can. And that was sort of my mindset. And then over a period of time, it was like, actually, I can't do that. You know, and so I gradually sort of weaned my way through all these different rubbers and blades and balsa blades, 7.5 jobbies, you know, because I just thought, well, if I can just hit it faster than anyone else, then I should be okay. But that really didn't work for about 12 months. So I ended up going back to something a little bit more sensible, which was like an all wood blade, funnily enough, you know, an offensive all wood blade. With sort of Tenergy on and stuff like that, 05 FX, and that sort of calmed me down and I was able to actually get the ball on the table as opposed to in the wall or in the roof, you know, so it sort of helped. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking into short pimples now because, you know, I mean, I've been dabbling around with it and I've been seeing the sort of success that certain people have with short pimps and stuff. And
being different is very effective. I mean, having something that someone's never seen before, that's kind of me. I mean, I've got some different stuff. I've got the pimples, I twiddle, I try. I mean,
you mess loads of people about, Rory. I mean, you know, I mean, I've watched you at tournaments and stuff like that, and you just, you know, it's horrible to see the frustration on people's faces, you know, when they're just like looking at their bat and looking at you and then looking at what they've done and they've like, what have I got to do? What have I got to do?
I think I kind of realized that, you know, I got to a certain level and, you know, maybe I could have got better and who knows, but I kind of thought to get Riley to the next level, I needed to kind of be different. And, you know, if you're not the best player, you know, started too late, never got any coaching, I think, you know, certain people in certain times of their lives, it's good to change. It keeps you interested in the game. It makes things interesting sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. Elroy, you were just sort of like, what do you think, mate?
Every player got a different feel and a different touch, and so there's a blade and there's a rubber, there's a combination for every different player. But changing rubbers around will help you to a certain point. But it all boils down to your ability in there.
Yeah.
If you don't have that ability, it's like I buy those what's those most expensive rubber
Dignex.
Dignex. I bought them, but I've never used it. I mean, I've practiced with it, and people say, "Why don't you use it?" I says, to be honest, I wouldn't be able to get the best out of those rubbers, so it's no point. I'm going to use it in a match. Certain rubbers, to me, is for the top players them who've done a certain amount of training to get the best. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So certain rubber is not for certain. It depends on your style.
So basically, there's an element in there. There's an element where a certain rubber could make a certain change, but ultimately, it's down to the individual to they still got to put that work ethic in to get it.
Yeah.
You've got to avoid being the kind of pathological equipment junkie like Simon Morgan is. You know, every 5 minutes he's got a new rubber and he tries it. Like every day you look at Facebook, only being used for 5 minutes. Anybody's got any offers? Like,
I thought he got better actually. I think he's settled down on his medium pimps now. I think so. But yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, but to be fair to him, you know, I went through that stage this sort of last year where I was just, you know,
I've never had enough money to go through that stage.
I putting bits of carpet and stuff on my back just to see if that would do any better. I don't know.
I've had hellfire long pimples on my back end since they came out. I don't know, 8 years ago, whenever it was. Staying there.
I'm going to give you. Oh, right, that's fine.
Sorry, Ellie.
That's all right.
No, sorry, Ellie. Did I miss you out there? Sorry, man. We were just like.
I'm interested in hearing what Ellie has to say.
Go for it, Ellie.
I'm going to give it to you from a slightly different perspective because I'm fortunate to work with some professional players and give you that perspective. And the professional players, a lot of them, they don't use the rubbers they do use the rubber that's on the market, but it's actually, they get a special rubber that's like not designed for them, but they get the best of the rubber. So for example, when it's made, they get the best part.
Right.
Now, that obviously clearly tells you that equipment is important, but we must understand how is it important. It's important in terms of marginal gains. And that's the most important element that we must, everyone that plays must understand. It's, if I give you a Ferrari, it doesn't matter how amazing the Ferrari is. If you don't know how to drive, forget it. You're not going to be able to get the best out of that Ferrari. So let's say we have the best drivers, and the best drivers all have a Ferrari. We have to tweak each car according to the person. So if someone's taller, then the seat might need to be a bit further back. If someone's needs a bit more, it's got better turning reaction, then they might need a faster wheel to turn or whatever. But what I'm trying to say is really is marginal gains. And
at the top level,
it's marginal gains. And I think also, and I think the problem with a lot of people, what they see is they see the top boys going, oh, I'm changing to a new carbon fiber, and they think, oh, well, that must work for them, that'll work for me. And that's where the big issues come in. So, most of us, if we're driving around in a Ford Focus or in a Corsa or whatever, we're going from A to B. And that's where most of us are. We're playing at a reasonable level and we're going from A to B effectively. At the top end, when you're talking about the Formula One guys, it's the marginal things, that the tires, that makes a tiny bit of difference that will give them the edge they need to potentially win more matches.
Cool.
I agree with that.
That's a good way of putting it, actually, Ellie.
I use the Formula One analogy quite a lot myself, I must admit. I think it works well.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that is good.